me.
We'll move on to item 6 on our agenda, public forum. 30 minutes is allowed for this item, 15 minutes for petitions and statements, and a 15 minutes for questions. Details of the petitions, statements and questions received have been circulated. These petitions have been submitted to full council under public forum. Petition organisers have 1 minute to present the title and description as well as the number of signatories. Petitions to be noted. Do we have any petitions today? No petitions received. So we'll move on to the next, which is public statements. We will move now to public statements received. In terms of the procedure, I would like to remind members of the public of the following. A maximum of 1 minute shall be allowed for the presentation of each statement. Please do summarise and bear in mind that all statements were sent to councillors in advance of the meeting. Each person is asked to speak to their statement for no longer than 1 minute. In dealing with these statements, I'm going to try to allow as many people as possible to speak. It is wonderful to see so many people here hoping to speak on a range of topics. As Lord Mayor, I would like to ensure we can hear from people on different topics, so I may not go in strict order of receipt. I will give precedence to those people who have submitted their statements first, and also to those that have indicated that they are planning to attend this evening's meeting. If we have been informed that there is a lead for a particular group of statements, we will try to call on these in person. So we move to PS01, Amber Eastman, G5. 5G, I beg your pardon.
On? Hello. Yeah. This is an unprecedented time in history when technological advances are evolving and being fast forward with incredible speed. Personally, I enjoy using technology and I'm aware how 5G will provide many functional benefits to how our cities and businesses are run, but yet so much is not being addressed, and as I see it, important and critical details about this technology are being swept under the carpet. The public are only being presented with the media's shiny, glittery version of 5G, and as I listen to the news and people's excitement about this technology, no one in Bristol, it seems, is publicly questioning the potential health and environmental effects to humans, animals, plants, and insects, especially children, nor are they addressing the hideous infrastructure that will soon be prolifically placed on
You have
all
10
our
seconds
streets,
left.
outside our homes and schools, as well as under the pavements. I choose not to use a mobile phone and would like to have access to white zones in the city where I'm not blasted by 5G technology.
Thank you. We move on to PS03A, Karen Churchill, 5G. Is Karen here? Thank you.
I want to bring your attention to the damaging effects on fertility as reviewed by Dr. Martin Powell. This information isn't acknowledged by Public Health England or the tech industry and is quite shocking. We need to stay very calm when realising the implications of it. Reproduction rates have dramatically fallen in the major technology hubs of the world. On average, it's below replacement levels, down to 73%. Sperm counts are 50% of what they were in these countries. The peer-reviewed research reveals sperm quality and quantity are adversely affected, with breaks in the DNA leading to mutations which are mostly irreversible. Researchers are seeing increased rates of miscarriage and hormonal changes and loss of libido in heavy mobile users. Pregnant women routinely use cell phones, tablets.
You have 10 seconds left.
unaware that studies consistently showed changes in DNA in the unborn child. We must take remedial action now before we see a generation of young people.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We move on to item 8 on our agenda is the petition debate, Pause Bristol's 5G rollout. This petition has reached the 3,500 signature threshold to qualify for a full council debate. And 20 minutes is the maximum time allocated for the debate. The petition organiser will be permitted up to 5 minutes to present the petition and its objectives. We will then proceed to the council debate, and I will also ask the Mayor or relevant cabinet member to respond at the end of the debate. Just to be clear, this is a councillor debate. It is not an interactive debate involving the public. The issues raised in the petition and the comments of the members during the debate in this meeting will be referred to the Mayor and the relevant cabinet member. The petition organiser is Sally Beare. Please may I therefore ask Sally to present the petition. You have 5 minutes to present your petition.
Can you all hear me? Okay, thank you so much for hearing us today. I've got a lot to say in 5 minutes. I'll try not to speak too quickly, but we want to try and raise your attention to why relying on the Public Health England assurances is very alarming for people, and to just introduce you to some of the science. And we really hope that we'll be able to find a way to work through this collaboratively, not combatively, but collaboratively. So we really understand and support the desire for a progressive Bristol, but we want safe and appropriate democratically applied technology. The UK government wants to be a world leader in 5G, and it sounds impressive, but most people, including our own government, are actually oblivious as to what 5G is going to bring. The benefits need to outweigh the costs. There are tens of thousands of peer-reviewed studies in the scientific literature showing that man-made pulse-modulated microwave radiation, which is what is used in mobile networks, including 4G and 5G, is harmful to all living things. There are 250 experts who have signed an urgent appeal to the UN to ban 5G, and there are thousands of scientists and doctors who have signed other appeals. A recent huge US Department of Health study showed a clear link between mobile radiation and fatal brain tumours. This was endorsed by 15 external physicians. It had a big PR campaign done against it, but it stands. The results have been replicated by the Ramazzini Cancer Institute of Research in Italy. They found the same results when replicating typical human real-life exposures. There are Swedish studies showing that mobile radiation causes a 5 times higher risk of brain tumour, especially in young people who are particularly susceptible. And there is a new English study from 2018 of nearly 80,000 brain tumours. It shows that rates of glioma, which is the very specific type of aggressive fatal brain tumour linked with mobile radiation in the laboratory studies, have actually doubled in the last 20 years. It is not true that there's been no increase. Those particular types have doubled. There's a 2018 review in The Lancet. It was a review of 2,000 studies. It concluded the weight of scientific evidence refutes the prominent claim that the deployment of wireless technologies poses no health risks. There are thousands of peer-reviewed studies on PubMed. They show symptoms including anxiety. There's a lot of neurological symptoms. It's really important to start recognizing this. GPs are starting to recognize these. Anxiety, insomnia, tinnitus, heart palpitations, headaches, nausea, damage to sperm, the brain, the heart, DNA. It is not true that non-ionizing radiation does not affect DNA. It does. We know the mechanisms for these now. and the nervous system. And there are particularly strong symptoms are being widely reported now from 5G hotspots, including Bristol, where the mast emissions are vastly stronger now. And there are at least 6 international studies showing clear cancer clusters within 500 metres of phone masts. Most Bristolians probably don't realise that there are going to be a lot more masts going up. The existing masts are having much stronger emissions, and monopoles are going to start appearing, more masts, and the lampposts will be activated outside people's houses. Most people don't even know this yet. And electromagnetic sensitivity is a condition now medically recognised in Europe. There are people who can't work in offices or go to cafes with Wi-Fi. There are even people who are having to live in sheds in their gardens because of very debilitating symptoms. And rolling out 5G may contravene the Equalities Act. Children are especially worrying because they absorb up to 60% more electromagnetic radiation than adults. Insurance companies won't insure for wireless radiation damage, and even Vodafone have noted in their shareholders report that there are health risks which may lead to litigation, which is in fact already happening in the US and Australia. On the grounds of assault, and cases are being won because the evidence is of such high quality. And so the problem is that we are being guided by ICNIRP, which is the International Commission on Non-Ionising Radiation Protection. They advise Public Health England and the World Health Organization, but they are a very small industry-loyal body with strong ties to the industry, and it's a very powerful industry. And the ICNIRP, the International Commission, will not recognise the overwhelming body of evidence.
You have 20 seconds left.
68% of studies show damage. The high-frequency form of 5G, as will be beamed from lampposts, does penetrate the skin, and it has been shown to damage the eyes, skin and nervous system. Please note that in Brussels and Geneva, very progressive cities, home to NATO, the UN, the EC, have all banned 5G.
Thank you. Your time
grounds.
is up. Can you sum up quickly, please?
Yes, so we know that this is a government rollout, but we also know that Bristol City Council has received funding for projects such as Bristol is Open. We would like you to please address your duty of care to citizens and listen to our concerns and look into this further.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I have 2...
Thank you. We will now... We will now proceed to the councillor debate. I'd like to call on Councillor Brook. Do you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. So firstly, thank you to the members of the public who have brought this petition. It's always good to have public engagement in the democratic process. However, I'm dismayed that it's this topic we're discussing because these concerns are scientifically unfounded, and those who've brought this petition have been misled and in turn are sadly misleading others. There seems to be a bewildering range of maladies attributed to 5G, including cancer, infertility, autism and Alzheimer's. Fears about radiation in the mobile industry are nothing new. They were around when 4G was rolled out, before that 3G and Wi-Fi. The claims and the arguments within them are not updated with time, they're simply repeated. They're from the same conspiracy theorists, fueled by fake news and misinformation that brought us the greatest hits, such as vaccines cause autism, people being allergic to power lines, the government spraying chemicals out the back of aeroplanes, and of course the Earth being flat. So let me be clear, there is no solid,
Can you please respect the councillor when he speaks, please?
5G or mobile communications has any effect on human health. None. It's been tested and proved to be safe. I speak here not only as a reasonably well-informed individual with an ability to Google, but also as an engineer working in risk and safety. Now, from the World Health Organization down, there is agreement in the scientific and medical community that 5G is not a threat to health. The only so-called evidence out there is from discredited researchers peddling pseudoscience using technical-sounding words to confuse people. Not
Can I please ask the gallery to respect the speaker? He is trying to make his points clearly and concisely, and I would ask you to respect that fact. You may not agree with him, but please listen to the debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Why are otherwise well-intentioned people, and I do believe you are well-intentioned, being drawn in? Firstly, I think a lack of understanding has a part to play. For instance, radiation is a vast spectrum with only the most high-energy waves posing a problem. 5G signals are simply not powerful enough to damage cells. All of us in this chamber right now are using much more powerful radiation than 5G signals, and this powerful radiation is penetrating deep into our skulls. I'm of course talking about the visible light we're using to see. You understand how easy it is to mislead people in these conversations. All too often people misunderstand, whether willingly or not, and it's this gap in understanding that is filled by misinformation. A recent study found that false news was 70% more likely to be retweeted than true stories. This is a problem for the whole of society. Furthermore, one of the most active media organisations promoting the dangers of 5G are Russia Today, and we all know how reliable they are. Now, whilst conspiracy theories long predate mass media and the internet, there's no denying that social media is fertile breeding ground. In Facebook groups and other social media, people get sucked into a bubble of like-minded individuals who together exclude reality in favour of their own beliefs. So as happens all too often in these issues, well-meaning but naive people have sadly been taken in by malicious misinformation. They've been spoon-fed nonsense under the guise of public safety. Please, 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 don't believe everything you read on the internet. Put yourself in a questioning mindset. Look at the evidence. One's default position should always be scepticism. We should learn from and utilise the scientific method, and we should act to stop the spread of conspiracy theories and fake news on the internet and elsewhere. And remember, the only thing that's cancerous here is the cancerous spread of pseudoscience and misinformation in our society.
Thank you very much. Can I just ask the gallery to respect what I said right at the beginning? The petitioner made their case. The councillors now are responding, and that is the process that we are in. I did remind you earlier on that we have a signer. If you're talking or shouting and the signer can't hear what's going on, it makes it very difficult to sign. And I would ask you, if for no other reason, to respect that. I would like to move on to Councillor Steve Smith to speak on behalf of the Tory party. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing the petition and everyone that's come to support it. I appreciate the concerns that you've come with. The passion and the strength of feeling is obvious, and it's important that it's debated here. I'm afraid that I'm going to disappoint you. My view is that we should not pause or stop the rollout of 5G here in Bristol. I think we are on the cusp of a genuine revolution in technology with 5G. Not that long ago, if you wanted to make a phone call, you had to be plugged into a wire in a building. Now we take it for granted you do it where and when you want. But even today, if you want fast, reliable data, you've still got to be plugged into a wire in a building, or at least in range of a hotspot that is. 5G changes that. It is as big a revolution as the invention of mobile phones was in the first place, and personally I'm proud that it's happening here in Bristol. We are a high-tech hub here, and many of the applications that 5G will make the new normal are already happening and being developed. Driverless cars being able to communicate and coordinate with one another, making more efficient use of our roads, intelligent power networks, saving on generation. I've just been shown an article by my colleague about cameras on the harbour side already using this technology and saving lives now, this year. I understand, though, the point of this petition isn't whether or not 5G is useful, whether or not it's good technology, it's whether does it pose a risk to health. And on this, I don't say this very often here, but I'm with the Mayor on this. I'm not a scientist. I'm not qualified to interpret scientific papers, neither, to my knowledge, is the Mayor. We have people whose job it is to do that. This is a report here from Public Health England. They are the people who exist in order to provide the independent verification that the petition asks for. Now, this report is dated July. It's up to date. It's this year. And it relies on the guidance that you've referred to that sets what are international guidance setting out safe levels of exposure to radio waves. And the report concludes that there may be a small increase in overall exposure when 5G is added, as you've said, to an existing network or a new area. However, the overall exposure is expected to remain low relative to guidelines, and as such, there should be no consequences for public health. Again, in here, I haven't got time to go chapter and verse, but I'm sure many of you have seen this. Well, I've got 3 minutes, I'm afraid. I'll put it on Facebook. Feel free to go and have a look. But quoted in the report are the expert committee who advised the World Health Organization on these matters, the expert committee that advises the EU on these matters, and the expert committee that advises the UK government on these matters. All of them agree that at the levels of exposure we're talking about here, well below those international guidelines,
you have 10 seconds
there is
left.
no evidence of harm. I think that provides the independent verification that the petition asks for, and I'm afraid I don't agree that it would make sense to stop the rollout in search of more when it's already there. Thank you.
I call on Councillor Hants to speak on behalf of the Green Party.
Right. Crikey. So it's clear to all of us here that there are a large number of people in this city who are desperately worried about the rollout of 5G in Bristol, and I imagine that many members have been contacted by residents about this. But, as Steve was pointing out, we are city councillors, we're not scientists, although we do have a few physicists on our bench. There are three issues as we see it. Firstly, information. I think it's fair to say there's a lot of information flying about. We've asked several people to speak to us as a group, including Sally Beare, the lead petitioner here. We've also asked researchers at Bristol University who are leading on this to come and talk to us. We're writing to DCMS to raise residents' concerns around 5G and to ask for clarification of some of the environmental, the economic and health risks and benefits of 5G technology. We've also asked for further research to be carried out on the technology's impact on animal and insect life to fill in any gaps and ask them to fill in any gaps in scientific knowledge on this topic, along with the impacts on energy use, which is something else that people have raised. Secondly, local implementation. Well, obviously we're not part of the administration, so we can't enact any changes, but we have been following up on residents' queries in a number of ways. We've asked about the planning process for 5G masts and how health and environmental concerns can be taken into account. We've asked the Bristol West MP, Thangham Debonair, to request a public policy summary on 5G research, and she's agreed to do this, and we're obviously very grateful to her for that. We're also following up with council officers to find out how residents will be informed about new 5G masts, as we feel there should be timely and transparent communication with people. So what can we as councillors actually do about this? Well, we know the petitioners are asking for a moratorium, but the only influence that councillors currently have is through the planning process when new masts are installed. National government sets planning policy guidelines for such matters, so we understand the amount of control the council has over telecom companies constructing new masts is very limited. Currently, the only grounds on which they can be refused is visual amenity, and that clearly doesn't reflect the concerns that some residents have. I know this is disappointing, but we are not in the business of making promises we've got no means of keeping. We would therefore make a suggestion that the Mayor considers following the example of Glastonbury and setting up a working group to look at the matter and report back to full council at a later date to try and reassure some concerns. So, to sum up, we recognise this is a complex and sometimes emotive subject, and frankly, and perhaps unusually for politicians, we don't know it all. We are, however, working hard to listen to the concerns of residents we represent, whilst ensuring the council takes a balanced approach to manage this process and to weigh the benefits from smarter communications versus any impacts. Thank you.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Hopkins to speak on behalf of the Liberal Democrats.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Clearly a very emotive subject. I don't think there's any dispute about the technical advantages that 5G can actually potentially give to us. And at the moment, I don't see an overwhelming health case against it. But I also think that we need to, with all new technologies, be careful. And what we need to do is to make certain that we don't just have a quick look and say, well, it seems to be fine. But we need to keep things like this under review. We need to see how the evidence actually grows or diminishes of a potential problem. And that isn't always what happens, unfortunately. There can very often, whether they're justified or not, be huge groundswells of opinion that something is dangerous, and then it swells up, and then it disappears, and you forget about it. And I think rather than doing that, we need to encourage the investigation on an ongoing basis to make certain that the health concerns that are there are genuinely looked at. The other aspect is the rather unsightly potential problems that could be looked at through the planning process. I hear rumours that central government might actually veto the power of local authorities to actually act on this, which would be very concerning. We value our street scene in Bristol. quite rightly, and I would be concerned if we finish up with very unsightly masts and repeaters put all around the city, which we have no power to actually deal with. That's a concern. So I would say that we need to progress with caution and make certain that we take account of evidence as it appears. Thank you.
I call on Councillor Carey.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. In the very few minutes I have, I'm going to try and put across my own findings on the issues of 5G transmission radiation. The people who design these systems spend years at university learning the theory and then decades developing the theory, and we're debating this in 3 minutes. So let's get amongst it. In 2014, the WHO stated that no adverse health effects can be established as being caused by mobile phone use. They then qualified it in a joint statement with the International Agency for Research on Cancer that all radio frequency radiation is possibly carcinogenic. It has been categorized as because there is evidence that falls short of conclusive evidence that may cause cancer in humans. However, they also say that eating pickled vegetables using talcum powder are classified as having the same risks, and that alcoholic drinks and processed meats are classified as higher carcinogenic risks. A toxicology report in 2018 by the US Department of Health suggested that there is a gender-based risk in radiation, as, listen to this one, male rats subjected to mobile phone radiation for 9 hours a day, 7 days a week, for 2 full years, starting from before they were born, they were more likely to develop cancerous tumours of the heart, whereas the female rats were not. It also suggested that those rats exposed to this radiation were more inclined to live longer. Can't work that one out. Certainly, it accepted that mobile phone radiation is within the non-ionizing range of radiation. This means it lacks the energy to damage DNA and cause cellular damage, unlike sunlight, X-rays, and gamma rays. With reference to the matter of heating through radiation, Professor Rodney Croft, advisor to the International Commission for Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection, says the maximum radio frequency that someone in the community could be exposed to from 5G is so small that no temperature rise has been observed to date. My own studies have indicated that if you shower with hydrocarbon-based soaps or shampoos, use lubricating oils, come into contact with diesel fuels, or if you fly long-haul aircraft trips, you are much more likely to be subjected to carcinogens than you would using a 5G mobile phone.
You have 10 seconds left.
Well, in that case then, I'll leap to the back page. So I would put it that there is no more risk in using 5G than there is in showering with a hydrocarbon-based soap or sitting out all day in the sunshine.
That is the end of the debate. Councillor Craig, would you like to respond? You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Firstly, I'd like to thank the petitioner for bringing this to our attention. Can you not hear? Can you hear me? 1, 2. Can you hear me? Oh well, it's not. It's clearly not working. But I will. Do you want to sit down? Yeah, maybe it's okay. Can you hear me now? Okay, sorry. So I do appreciate the concerns that have been raised about the alleged health risks of the 5G rollout. But whether you like it or not, all councils, including Bristol, have to take their advice from Public Health England. And it is this advice that we have had to work with. The council... the Public Health England Centre for Radiation, Chemical and Environmental hazards, takes the lead on public health matters associated with radio frequency, electromagnetic fields, or radio waves used in telecommunications. Mobile telecommunications technology has developed through several generations, and there are now many 2G, 3G, and 4G base stations installed throughout the environment, providing services to users of mobile phones and other devices. Public Health England have advised that the highest frequencies being discussed for future use by 5G is not new, and they have been used in microwaves, some other types of transmitters for many years. Public Health England have advised that it is possible that there may be a small increase in overall exposure to radio waves when 5G is added to an existing network or in a new area. However, the overall exposure is expected to remain low, relatively low to guidelines, and as such, there should be no consequences for public health. Now, we heard from my colleague about, the kind of anti-5G movement and the claims that have been made around the upgrade to the network, causing cancer, infertility, autism, but there really is no proof. And I understand that the level of misinformation is growing. I've just done a search on the internet, and it's crazy how much information and misinformation is out there. So there is no solid evidence that 5G or any mobile communication network can have a harmful effect on human health.
You have 10 seconds left.
The upgrade is based on similar technology to preceding mobile networks, and so far no study has found a link between mobile phones and cancers, although research into the area is ongoing. And I recognise and support the proposal from my Green colleague in terms of additional investigatory work being undertaken, but we have to take our lead from Public Health England. So I'm not poo-pooing what you're saying, but we are led by the experts.
Can you draw to a close, please?
Thanks.
Thank you. I now ask Council to note the issues raised in the petition, together with the comments of members during the debate at this meeting, which I will now be referring to the Mayor and the relevant Cabinet member for consideration and response back to the petitioning organisation. Thank you.
So, Barry, could you tell us who you are and what is your background?
Yeah, with pleasure. In 1959, I studied radar. To go into the Royal Navy. Radar obviously encompasses microwaves, same frequency. And we had to learn about all of the dangers of being exposed to microwaves because it was our job. I worked with the Royal Navy Underwater Bomb Disposal Unit. I was a diver as well. And microwaves were used in mines as booby traps. One of the ways microwaves were used in mines was to send a beam to the head of the bomb disposal person if you were out the water to make you make a mistake, which is how I knew microwaves could affect the brain. I also studied, studied the medic. Not up to the level of doctor, but I was the ship's medic as well, so I studied the human physiology and everything else. When I came out the Royal Navy, I had top security clearance. I taught in the maximum security wing in Wormwood Scrubs and other places, where we had captured spies in the Cold War, and because I was trained in microwaves, and microwaves in the Cold War were big weapon discoveries. It's a stealth weapon that you can't be seen, can't be detected, and it's a good way to kill people. I've seen documents. We used it on the Catholics in Northern Ireland It was used on the women at Greenham Common, the protesters, to give them cancer, make them sick. So microwaves were used by all of the main countries on the other countries, and still are to this day. So I spent 11 years talking to spies involved in microwaves. After that, I went off, I taught advanced physics in school, general science, chemistry, physiology, advanced physics. My degree, one of my degrees, I studied with Exeter here. I specialised in nuclear and atomic physics. I wanted to learn it properly, and my dissertation was on absorption of the far end of the microwave spectrum. I have another degree. I studied the environmental influences on thinking processes. I have a teaching diploma in human physiology. I taught advanced physics, mathematics, certainly physiology, so a little bit of chemistry, and I was the author of the Tetra report for the Police Federation of England and Wales, the higher confidential report for the senior officers for the police force to represent the ambulances and fire brigade, and since then I have been the go-to person, not that I'm the cleverest, but I've been the go-to person for virtually the world to explain why a weapon, a very successful weapon, which is still used today and in the 5G frequency, why a very successful weapon can also be a domestic, safe instrument for children to use. And of course it can't. And this is the problem. And this is why we are having the brain tumours and the illnesses and the birth defects. This is why all the statistics are coming up. And it's why you are here today. And it is one massive cover-up. If it were one country invading another country with this sort of death rate and suffering rate, it would be classed as genocide, without a shadow of a doubt. I even know some professors that have gone to the World Court to have this registered as genocide and have the industry taken to court. I've given evidence, or sent evidence for that. But you're up against the most powerful industry on the planet, backed by the government because of the money they're getting, and because the secret services have the ability to watch and listen to everybody. So you're in a catch-22 if you're the government. You've got all of this information coming in that you can use to spy on people. You have the tens of billions coming in, but you know it's going to cause more deaths and suffering than lead in petrol and smoking and everything else. But it's worth it. To the government, it is worth it. And they are in a catch-22, and at the moment they prefer the money, which is why your MP will have nothing to do with me. And I've been asked by the people, I've been to Totnes 3 times to give talks, and I've been asked to go and do another talk, but there's no point until the MP will turn up. But the problem that you have now is that in 1999, 375 of the top companies in the microwave industry, they got together and said, let's go wireless. 1999. Let's go wireless. We'll call it Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is not a specific, well, it's now adopted by a specific frequency, but it just really meant wireless. 375 of the top companies got together and said, let's not bother with fibre optic cable or other cable systems. We can send wireless. And the frequency they chose, 2.4 gigahertz, to send wireless, because on paper it looked the most effective, and it is the most effective, it is also the choice that has been used since the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. It's the choice by the government stealth microwave warfare industry. So you have the most effective microwave frequency, and it's not just me saying this. You've got the leader of the Soviet Department of Nuclear and Atomic Sciences saying it and writing it. You've got the leader, a captain of the Secret Service, saying whatever you do, don't use this. This is the most effective weapon, and I can go into why and what it will cause if you want. But they financially, because it's the most effective weapon, it is the most effective Wi-Fi microwave frequency, and they said, Zonk, we'll have this one. So we are now giving pregnant women, children, whatever, the most effective weapon, and we're putting them up in schools like Dartington for children to be exposed to all of the time. And this is why we're having the rate of tumours and cancers, and there are at least 8 different cancers now going haywire. And this is why we're in the predicament we're in, and why 58% of the world is saying not here, and we're taking legal action and everything else, and 42% of the planet, who are controlled by a list of no more than 20 powerful people who are effectively government advisors. They're non-elected, but they are government scientists. Around 20 people are controlling 42% of the planet. And this 42% of the planet we are in, and this is why you are getting nowhere. Because everything you do goes to, and in this country, there's only a few of them. I've known countries, I've been to countries where only one person speaks for the whole planet. In fact, I've been to 2 countries where one person says, no, this is safe, or according to our experiments, this is safe. And 42% of the planet are basically controlled by 20 people, and it's these 20 people that we are now, and I am also actively giving evidence for the World Court to bring charges of genocide, and this is where we are.
Okay. If you were to summarise in 1 minute, Barry, what is 5G?
5G starts at because it is Wi-Fi enabled, it starts at the 2.4 gigahertz, goes right up to 70 to 80 gigahertz. These are particularly dangerous waveforms because a lot of them interact with the cyclotronic and circadian resident frequencies in the body. They react, they set up resonant frequencies with a lot of the cellular structures in the body. They will cause massive damage in the body without a shadow of a doubt. And at the far end of the 5G frequency range, and there are lots of them, is a new weapon that has just been developed. You won't have heard of it. Its nickname is the Growler. And it is designed for rapid neurological and physiological damage for crowd control, where you send this top end of the 5G frequency down into a crowd or people or demonstrators or people you don't like, and it will cause severe neurological damage, severe physical damage, which may go on for generations. They're not interested in that bit. But 5G, it's the new frequency range, because the others are all being used. The new frequency range, which is probably as or even more dangerous than the 2.4 gigahertz, which is also in the 5G range, and it gives everybody all of the information about you that they want. The information can go two ways. It can be used to harm you, and it can be used to spy on you.